In the dusty heart of the Old West, a tale unfolds that will send shivers down your spine. A story of longing, isolation, and the darker side of love. She dreamed of a husband who'd guard her from the wildness of the frontier. But what she got was a man whose protection turned into a cage, locking her away from the world outside. Meet Clara, a young woman whose heart was filled with visions of a life enriched by love and security. Growing up in a small town surrounded by tales of brave settlers and unforgiving lands, she yearned for a partner who would shield her from the harshness of frontier life. Yet, when she finally met Jonah, a rugged man whose reputation as a protector preceded him, she felt drawn to him like a moth to a flame. Their courtship was a whirlwind of promises and dreams. Jonah was charming, his laughter resonating with a warmth that cloaked his more dubious nature. He spoke of adventures in the vast open plains, the thrill of chasing bandits, and the peace of a home filled with laughter. Clara surrendered her heart to him, convinced that he would be the shield she so desperately sought. In her excitement, she overlooked the subtle signs hinting that the man who wooed her with tales of bravery was not what he seemed. The day they wed was not just the start of their life together. It marked the beginning of her descent into a different kind of wilderness, one where freedom was a distant memory. Jonah's fierce love soon revealed itself as something far darker. At first, he built their home with care, surrounding it with a high fence, insisting that it was to keep out the dangers of the wild. But as days turned into weeks, that fence felt more like a prison wall. He expressed his love through keeping her close, claiming that it was for her own good. "You don't understand how perilous the West can be," he would say, his voice low and serious. "There are rustlers, wild animals, all sorts of danger lurking just beyond our door." Clara, once vibrant and full of life, began to shrink in her confines. The garden she had planted as a symbol of hope withered, just like her spirit. Jonah's controlling nature blossomed. He wouldn't let Clara venture outside without his permission, always watching from the door like a hawk. The world that spun outside their home, the townsfolk, the markets, the simple joy of freedom, slowly faded into a distant dream. She had hoped for a protector, and found herself in a desolate landscape of isolation that felt more suffocating each day. As the months dragged on, whispers of her plight reached the small community nearby. Clara's friends grew worried. They remembered her laughter and dreams, but now saw her as a shadow of her former self. They started visiting, pretending that everything was fine, trying to catch glimpses of the Clara they once knew. But Jonah was a master at deception. He greeted them with a smile that felt more like a warning than a welcome. "Clara's just resting," he would say, a chill settling over the room. "She's not well enough for company." One fateful evening, under the cover of darkness, Clara made a decision fueled by desperation. She found the courage to plan her escape. While Jonah was outside tending to the horses, she crept through the back door, pulling her shawl tightly around her shoulders. The cool night air kissed her skin, and the stars twinkled above like forgotten dreams. Each step away from the house made her heart race, a mix of fear and hope flooding her veins. But it wasn't long before Jonah's instincts caught wind of her plan. He returned, and as the sky turned from deep blue to a darkened gray, Clara heard the sound that shattered her resolve, the galloping of hooves. She turned to face him, her heart sinking as she realized the futility of her efforts. Jonah rode up, his expression one of raw fury, a storm brewing behind his dark eyes. "Where do you think you're going?" he shouted, the softness of his voice now a distant memory. In that moment, Clara understood the depth of his possessiveness. He had turned from protector to warden, and the safety she'd once desired had morphed into a fear she could no longer bear. Jonah advanced, pulling her close, his arms encircling her like iron chains. The man she loved was now the very embodiment of the very danger she had wished to escape. Days passed, and the once bustling home now echoed with silence. Clara no longer dreamed of a future filled with love and laughter. What remained was only a bitter reality of expectations and control. She stood by the window, watching the world outside. a world of opportunities that slipped through her fingers like sand. Friends no longer knocked at her door. They had become mere memories. One evening Clara made an impossible choice. She crafted a letter, her heart pouring out words of longing, despair, and hope. In it, she pleaded for someone to rescue her from the invisible chains that bound her. With trembling hands, she placed it upon the windowsill, knowing that she might never see it reach anyone. She hoped desperately that it would break the silence that had become her life. As winter descended upon their isolated home, so did the silence. Clara became a ghost in her own life, drifting from room to room, shadows flickering in the dimness. Jonah remained ever watchful, his love twisted into a suffocating grip. She would often think of the tales she had heard as a child, of women who found their freedom against all odds, but she felt no courage rising within her. Instead, a deep exhaustion swallowed her spirit whole. Then one fateful night, a storm raged outside, a tempest that seemed to echo Clara's inner turmoil. With thunder crashing like the clash of swords, she found herself standing by the window once more. In that moment of tempestuous rage and flickering candlelight, a long-dormant courage awoke within her. She could either remain captive to Jonah's relentless grip or seize this chaotic universe as a chance for freedom. With the storm consuming the night, Clara made her stand. This time she would not back down. As the winds howled, she made her way to Jonah, ready to confront him, ready to reclaim her life. The confrontation that ensued challenged everything she thought she knew about love, vulnerability, and strength. Would she succeed in breaking free, or would the storm mark the end of her struggle? In the heart of the Old West, where the wilderness held as many perils as it did possibilities, Clara's story reminds us of the fine line between love and possession, protection and captivity. As she battled the storm both outside and within, the true question loomed. Could she finally break the chains and reclaim her narrative, or would she forever remain a prisoner in her quest for safety? As Clara faced Jonah, the storm raged on outside, shaking the very foundations of their home. Lightning illuminated the tense figure of her husband, casting eerie shadows across the dimly lit room. His eyes, once warm with affection, now blazed with a dangerous intensity that sent chills down her spine. "What's gotten into you, Clara?" Jonah demanded, his voice low and threatening. "I've given you everything. A roof over your head, food, and protection. You think I'd let anything happen to you?" His words had once soothed her fears, but now they felt like chains tightening around her throat. "This isn't the life I wanted, Jonah. You've imprisoned me," she cried, her voice rising above the raging storm. Each word was a spark, igniting the fuel of her pent-up frustration. "I wanted adventure, love, and the chance to make my own choices." Jonah stepped closer, his expression darkening. "You think you know what you want, but you don't understand the dangers out there. I'm keeping you safe from a world that doesn't care about you. You think they're your friends? They'd only betray you for $1. For a fleeting moment, Clara saw a flicker of fear behind his anger. Perhaps it had always been there, a reflection of his own insecurities. But she couldn't let that sway her. The walls of their home felt like a cage now, built not just of wood but of fear and desperation. "I cannot live like this," she said, her voice steadying as determination surged within her. "I refuse to be your prisoner." As if sensing her resolve, Jonah's demeanor shifted. A mixture of anger and pain crossed his face, and in that moment his vulnerability was almost tangible. "You'll regret this, Clara. You don't know what's out there," he threatened, but Clara could hardly hear him over her own heartbeat, a steady drum of defiance. Taking a step back, she caught sight of her shawl draped over a chair, a reminder of the world beyond the confines of their home. "Maybe I'd rather take my chances out there than live in a gilded cage," she shouted, her heart racing. With that, Clara bolted toward the door, her instincts kicking in. She flung it open, the storm's icy breath hitting her before she even took a step outside. The rain poured down, sharp needles against her skin, but she didn't care. Each droplet felt like freedom, a baptism into a life she desperately craved. "Clara, stop!" Jonah's voice boomed like thunder, but she didn't look back. She ran into the swirling darkness, her feet pounding against the muddy ground, propelled by a sense of urgency she hadn't felt in years. The fierce wind threatened to pull her off balance, but with every step, she felt stronger. In the chaos of the storm, clarity flooded her mind. She needed to reach the town, the market she had dreamed of visiting, the streets bustling with life long gone. The old, dusty memories of her friends and dreams urged her on, guiding her footsteps as she raced through the torrential rain. But Jonah was not far behind. His footsteps echoed like thunderclaps, and Clara could hear his heavy breathing, a reminder that she was not free yet. The thought alone fueled her determination. She had to find a way to turn this night into a new beginning, a promised escape from his grasp. As she rounded a bend, Clara spotted the flickering light of a distant lantern. Hope surged within her, a beacon calling to her through the storm. She picked up her pace, pushing through the thick mud that clung to her boots. Each step was a battle, the storm reflecting the tumult within her heart. Reaching the edge of the town, Clara stumbled into the light. The familiar buildings, barely visible through the downpour, beckoned her like welcoming arms. But as she neared the lantern, she realized the light came from a small general store, abandoned in the chaos. The door creaked as she stepped inside, the air musty with dust and forgotten memories. She pressed her back against the wall, trying to catch her breath, a torrent of emotions coursing through her. Should she call for help? Or would Jonah have already spread lies about her, clouding the minds of the townsfolk? Clara realized that trusting others, hoping for their aid, might be fraught with complication. Suddenly, a noise outside caught her attention, the unmistakable sound of Jonah's heavy footsteps approaching the store. Panic welled up within her. She darted behind a shelf, holding her breath, praying he wouldn't find her. His voice drifted inside, calling her name with a mix of desperation and threat. "Clara, come out! You don't belong out here! It's dangerous!" The flickering lantern barely illuminated the cluttered shelves, and Clara could feel the weight of the storm pressing against her, just as Jonah's words pressed against her resolve. She searched her heart, knowing that this was more than just a fight for physical freedom. It was about claiming her identity, her right to exist as more than just Jonah's wife. With trembling hands, she found an old lantern sitting on a nearby shelf, its glass cracked but still intact. If she couldn't have the townspeople's help, there was something she could do. Just as Jonah stepped inside, Clara swung the lantern into the shadows, igniting its wick. The flame flickered to life, casting dancing shadows, revealing the chaos of her surroundings. Jonah paused, disbelief painted across his features as he saw the fire. "Clara!" he shouted, a mixture of anger and confusion. "You don't know what you're doing!" But Clara held her ground, the flickering light illuminating the fierce determination in her eyes. "I will not be held captive any longer," she declared, her voice ringing clear above the storm. The fire burned brighter, symbolizing her newfound strength and resilience. With that, she hurled the lantern toward the open door, watching as the light illuminated the rain-soaked ground, flames licking hungrily at the wooden steps. The blaze reflected her wild spirit, untamed, refusing to be silenced any longer. Jonah's expression shifted, an intensity boiling beneath his surface. "You'll regret this, Clara," he shouted, but she didn't falter. The time for regrets was over. As the flames began to spread, Clara turned and raced through the back of the store, fleeing into the shadows, her heart pounding with hope and fear. The storm may have raged on outside, but inside her, a fierce tempest of courage ignited. This was her moment of freedom, chasing the light through the darkness that had bound her for too long. She emerged onto the muddy path leading to the edge of town, the fire behind her casting a haunting glow. Clara knew that she was finally free, even if the journey ahead was fraught with uncertainty. The storm howled in the night, but amidst its fury, Clara's resolve stood firm. She wouldn't just survive. She would thrive. More than just a fighter in the wilderness of the Old West, She would carve her own path, one step closer to the life she had always desired. Clara sprinted down the muddy path, the silhouette of the town fading behind her as flames flickered ominously in the storm. Each step felt like a small rebellion against the oppressive grip of Jonah, her heart racing with hope as adrenaline surged through her veins. She had finally broken free from the chains of her past, but the path ahead remained uncertain. The rain poured, soaking her through, and the wind whipped around her like vengeful spirits. But for every gust that tried to push her back, she leaned into it, her determination as fierce as the storm itself. The thunder echoed like a drumbeat, urging her onward, mixing with the rhythm of her pulse, one beat for fear, the next for defiance. As she reached the outskirts of town, the flickering lights of distant cabins provided a glimmer of hope amidst the tempest. Clara glanced over her shoulder, half expecting to see Jonah galloping after her, his eyes wild with rage. But the sound of the fire crackling behind her, mingling with the chaos of the storm, held him at bay. In that moment of fear and hope, she allowed herself a breath. She was free, at least for now. She pressed on, heading deeper into the wild, where the trees formed a dense canopy overhead, shielding her from both the rain and the world she sought to escape. The familiar path she had walked as a child felt like a distant memory, replaced by the pain of her recent captivity. But even amidst her despair, butterflies of anticipation flitted in her stomach. Somewhere out there lay the promise of a new beginning, a chance to carve out the life she had once dreamed of. Every rustle of leaves and snap of twigs felt amplified in the silence of the wilderness. Clara carefully navigated the underbrush, her senses heightened, aware that she was truly alone for the first time. The fear of being hunted lingered like a shadow, but she was determined to shake it off. She needed to find refuge, somewhere safe where she could think and plan her next move. Exhaustion tugged at her limbs, but she pushed forward, her resolve stronger than ever. She recalled stories her mother had told her as a child about women banding together in times of need, forming tight-knit communities in the vastness of the frontier. She envisioned finding such a place, where women supported one another, where she could feel a sense of belonging that had eluded her for so long. Suddenly Clara spotted a faint glow shimmering through the trees. Gathering her strength, she approached cautiously, heart pounding at the thought of what she might find. As she drew near, the glow transformed into a warm light pouring forth from a small cabin nestled between the gnarled roots of ancient trees. Smoke curled from the chimney, and the faint sound of laughter drifted on the wind, drawing her closer still. Clara hesitated at the threshold, uncertainty flooding her mind. What if these people were unkind? What if they rejected her? But then she thought of the long, dark nights spent trapped in her home, the suffocating presence of Jonah. She couldn't let fear dictate her choices any longer. She had to believe there was kindness left in the world. Summoning her courage, she knocked gently on the door, her heart racing with anticipation. Footsteps approached, and with a creak, the door swung open to reveal a warm, inviting interior. An older woman stood there, her silver hair escaping from a loose bun, her eyes filled with curiosity and concern. "Come in, dear," the woman said, stepping aside as Clara hesitated. "You must be freezing. Come warm yourself by the fire." Clara stepped inside, the warmth enveloping her like a much-needed embrace. The scent of baked bread and stew wafted through the air, reminding her of simpler times, the kind of life she longed to reclaim. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the crackling fire. "Name's Eloise," the woman said, noting Clara's uncertainty. "What brings you out here in such a storm? You look like you've been through quite an ordeal." Clara hesitated, unsure of how much to reveal. But something in Eloise's demeanor calmed her racing heart. I ran away," she finally admitted, tears welling in her eyes. "I couldn't stay with him any longer. He controlled everything. I just wanted to be free." Eloise nodded, her expression sympathetic. "You're not the first to find yourself trapped in a cage masquerading as a home, but you're safe here, dear. This is a refuge for anyone seeking solitude, hope, and a fresh start." You can stay as long as you need." Emotions surged through Clara like the floodwaters of the storm outside. After weeks of feeling suffocated and alone, she finally felt a flicker of hope. "Thank you," she said again, more firmly this time. "I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't opened your door." Eloise smiled gently and motioned for Clara to sit at the table. "You need to eat and warm up first. Then we'll talk. There's strength in sharing your story. You'll be surprised how many of us have wandered into the storm seeking shelter." As Clara settled in, her heart filled with gratitude. She watched the older woman bustle about as the fire crackled and the scent of stew filled the room. For the first time in what felt like eternity, she allowed herself to hope again. The feeling was foreign yet exhilarating, like stepping into the light after being trapped in darkness. While Clara ate the warm meal, she listened to Eloise share tales of other women in the community, stories of resilience and newfound strength. Just as Clara had longed for companionship in her darkest moments, others had also whispered secrets of their pasts, each tale weaving a tapestry of shared experiences. And as the storm raged on outside, the wind howling, the rain beating against the windows, Clara realized she had crossed a threshold. This wasn't just a temporary reprieve from her husband's tyranny. This was her chance to reclaim her identity, to forge a new destiny alongside other women who understood what it meant to fight for freedom. Here, she was not merely a captive wife. She was a survivor ready to thrive. The night slipped quietly into morning, and Clara felt a growing sense of purpose swell within her. The storm may have raged, but it was no longer an enemy. It had ushered her to safety, the beginning of a journey to a new life. With Eloise and the other women by her side, she could begin to navigate the wild frontier, transforming each challenge into strength, each setback into resilience. Clara had chosen freedom, and she would defend it with all she had. What lay ahead was uncertain, but this time she would face it on her own terms, a fierce spirit unmarked by the chains of the past. As dawn broke outside, illuminating the world in shades of gold, Clara embraced the light, ready to embark on her new adventure, one that would redefine her life, a journey toward empowerment and connection, with hope stretching out before her, like the endless horizon. As dawn broke over the horizon, Clara awoke to the soft glow of sunlight streaming through the window. The warmth of the cabin wrapped around her like a comforting blanket, a stark contrast to the coldness she had fled. She looked around, momentarily disoriented, until the events of the previous night rushed back to her. The fire still crackled gently, casting a soft, flickering light across the room. Eloise was already up, bustling about the small kitchen. She hummed a tune to herself, the melody cheerful and light, infusing the air with an atmosphere of hope. Clara sat up, feeling the remnants of fear slowly dissipating like morning mist under the sun's embrace. She stretched and took a deep breath, the aroma of freshly baked bread mingling with the scent of herbs simmering in a pot, awakening her senses. "Good morning, dear," Eloise beamed as she turned to Clara, her hands busy arranging a bit of breakfast. "I hope you slept well." "I did, thank you," Clara replied, her voice stronger than the night before. "I feel different this morning, more alive." "That's the spirit. You've been through so much, and now it's time to heal. Eat up. We've got a busy day ahead," Eloise encouraged, setting a bowl of steaming soup before her. Clara dug in, savoring the flavors and the sensation of being cared for. Each spoonful felt like nourishment for her soul, a simple reminder that kindness still existed in the world. As they ate, Clara noticed several photographs hanging on the walls. Women of all ages, laughter frozen in time, faces shining with the same vibrancy she remembered in her own life. This was a community, a sisterhood. "Who are they?" Clara asked, gesturing toward the pictures. "Those are the women who've passed through here," Eloise explained, her smile carrying a touch of nostalgia. "Some moved on to find their own paths, while others stayed to help build this home. Each has a story worth telling. You'll meet some of them soon." Eloise cleared the table and, after washing the dishes, turned to Clara with a glint in her eye. How about we take a walk around the property? I'll introduce you to some of our neighbors. They're eager to welcome you." Clara's heart fluttered with anticipation and nerves. "I'd like that," she replied, ready to step into this new chapter. Together they slipped out of the cabin and onto a well-trodden path lined with resilient wildflowers, swaying gently in the breeze. The storm had left behind a crispness in the air, fresh and invigorating. As they walked, Clara listened intently as Eloise shared tales of the women who lived nearby, each a testament to resilience, each an echo of triumph over adversity. "This community was built on the strength of women who supported one another," Eloise said, her eyes sparkling with pride. "We learned that we're stronger together than apart." Just then, they approached a small cottage, its door flung open wide. A group of women bustled around a table adorned with fabrics and sewing supplies, laughter ringing out like melodious bells. Clara felt a pang of yearning for the camaraderie she had lost, and her heart raced at the prospect of finding it again here. "Ladies, gather round. We have a new friend," Eloise called as they walked inside. The women turned, their expressions lighting up as Clara stepped into the room. "Welcome," one of the women exclaimed, stepping forward with outstretched arms. "I'm May. It's lovely to finally meet you, Clara." "Thank you," Clara said, a mix of shyness and excitement washing over her. The warmth emanating from the group reassured her and made her feel like she belonged. It was the antithesis of what she'd experienced with Jonah. The women soon wrapped Clara in tales of their lives, adventures, losses, and dreams. They shared laughter while threading needles and sharing tips about sewing, patching worn clothes, and creating beauty from scraps. Clara felt giddy, drawn into their world as if she had found a missing piece of herself. "Tell us, what are your dreams?" May asked, her gaze meeting Clara's with genuine curiosity. "I've always wanted to learn how to create things, crafts, clothes, maybe even help others find their way," Clara admitted hesitantly, the barriers around her heart starting to dissolve. "After everything, I've realized I want to make something beautiful." "Then that's what you shall do," Eloise declared, her voice filled with conviction. "Every woman here has taken something and turned it into beauty. You will learn, and together, we will nurture that spark." Clara felt hope bloom inside her, igniting the forgotten dreams she had once stifled under Jonah's oppression. Over weeks, she immersed herself in her new life. Tasks that seemed daunting transformed into opportunities for empowerment and growth. Whether it was sewing, cooking, or tending to the garden, every achievement fed her confidence and helped her reclaim the essence of who she once was. However, the shadows of her past lingered. At night, sleep sometimes evaded her, replaced by dreams of Jonah and the fear that had haunted her. The memory of his rage, the leering accusation of pursuit, would seep into her consciousness. Yet each time she awoke, the dawn brought her back to the sanctuary she had found. One afternoon, as Clara worked with Eloise, mending an old quilt filled with patches that told stories of their history, a chilling rustle in the trees broke her focus. The air became heavy, thick with an unshakable tension that made her heart race. "Did you hear that?" Clara whispered, glancing toward the door, her instincts kicking into high gear. Eloise paused, her brow furrowed. "It's probably nothing, just the wind. But let's take a look." They cautiously approached the door, the bright afternoon sunlight sharply contrasting with the dread settling over Clara. As they stepped outside, the rustling grew louder, sending shivers coursing through her body. Then they saw it. A figure appeared at the edge of the trees, dark and imposing against the backdrop of vibrant green. Clara's heart dropped as recognition struck like a thunderbolt. It was Jonah, his silhouette darkening the landscape as he stepped forward into the light. "What are you doing here?" Clara's voice wavered as she felt panic rise within her, the barriers of her newfound peace beginning to crumble. "I've come to take you home, Clara," Jonah said, his voice low and smooth, but beneath it lay icy tension. "You can't hide from me. I will never let you go." Eloise stepped in front of Clara protectively, her gaze steady as she addressed Jonah. "You need to leave. Clara is safe here. You can't intimidate her any longer. Jonah's eyes narrowed, casting a shadow of fear over Clara. How had he found her? The tranquility that had filled her heart began to dim as memory flooded back. Of control, of chains, of fear. Let her be, Jonah. She deserves her freedom, Eloise said firmly, standing her ground. Jonah's expression darkened as he shifted his focus. You think you can protect her? You're nothing but an old woman. You have no idea what she needs. The air quivered with tension as Clara felt the familiar grip of fear closing in. But then she noticed the women behind her, gathering together in solidarity. Their presence bolstered her courage. No, Clara said, her voice steadying. You don't decide what I need anymore, Jonah. I am not yours to control. I have my life and my dreams now. Jonah's face darkened, and something dangerous flickered in his gaze. You'll regret this, he hissed. But Clara stood tall, unshaken by his words. Leave now, or I will not spare you the consequences, Eloise warned, her tone icy. The unwavering strength in Clara's newfound community surrounded her like an armor. In that moment of confrontation, Clara felt the weight of her past begin to lift. She had fought for her voice, and it had returned with a determined strength. Jonah's power began to wane against the unity of the women who had wrapped her in kindness and camaraderie. With a last, steely glare, Jonah turned and retreated into the shadows of the woods. The fear that had haunted her began to recede like a storm passing into the distance. Clara stood rooted to the spot, trembling yet invigorated, bolstered by the strength that surrounded her. As the figure of Jonah vanished among the trees, Eloise turned to Clara, her expression calm but watchful. He may return, and we must be ready, she advised. But know this, you are not alone. We'll stand together against any threat. Clara took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of solidarity wrap around her like a protective cloak. I'm not afraid anymore, she declared, her voice resonating with newfound conviction. I will not let him control me. Not now. Not ever. The other women stepped forward, their hands on Clara's shoulders, a show of support and love that filled her heart to the brim. May nodded, her eyes gleaming with determination. Together, we can fight. We can protect each other. We will create a safe space, not just for you, but for all of us, another woman chimed in, her voice strong. The past is a part of us, but it doesn't define us. We can rewrite our stories. The realization washed over Clara like sunshine breaking through clouds after a storm. This community was not just a refuge. It was a beacon, illuminating the way forward. They had forged an unbreakable bond, and together they could navigate whatever tumult lay ahead. As the sun began to set, the air filled with a renewed sense of purpose. The group gathered around the fire pit behind the cabin, the golden glow flickering against the twilight sky. Clara watched as they began to share stories, laughter mingling with the sounds of the cracking fire. Each tale spoke of trials faced and conquered, reinforcing the notion that they were all survivors in their own right. Clara listened intently, absorbing every word, feeling herself becoming woven into the fabric of their lives. Here was the strength she needed, the encouragement to rise above the past. Later that evening, as the stars twinkled above like diamonds scattered across velvet, Clara found herself sitting next to Eloise, who held a mug of warm tea in her hands. Clara, she began softly, do you really understand what you've done today? You stood up to him. That took immense courage. I had to, Clara replied. And yet I feel it was only the beginning. I can't let fear define my life anymore. Eloise smiled, pride shining in her eyes. That's the spirit. Every time you face your fears, you grow stronger. We all will help lift each other as we navigate our journeys. As the night wore on, Clara felt a sense of belonging blossom within her that had long been absent. The burdens of her past began to transform into lessons, each hardship a stepping stone toward her freedom. She shared her own story with the group, revealing her heartache, fears, and dreams. I want to create something beautiful, she confessed, to help others who might be feeling lost or trapped. Just like I was. I want to turn the pain into something meaningful." The women nodded, their expressions encouraging. "We all want that," May added. "This community can be a space for healing and creativity. Let's explore these dreams together." With enthusiasm, Clara joined in as they discussed plans for crafts, sewing circles, and ways to share their art with others. They envisioned a place where stories intertwined, where hands could work together to transform dreams into reality. As Clara contributed ideas and felt the support of her newfound friends, she realized she could finally envision her future. The whispers of her aspirations began to take form, like delicate flowers unfurling in the dawn light, a rebirth nurtured by the strength of sisterhood. Days turned into weeks, as Clara found herself fully immersed in the rhythm of community life. Together they held workshops to weave, sew, and create, all infused with laughter, love, and memories shared. A small garden blossomed, representing their collective strength in nurturing life, with Clara taking the lead. Yet Jonah's specter lingered. He was a reminder of the darkness she had left behind. Each evening, after the day's chores and laughter, Clara would steal glances down the path that led back to her former life, her heart pounding with the tension of uncertainty. Would he come back? Would he try to reclaim his hold over her? But each time doubt crept in, Clara reminded herself of the bonds she had formed and the strength she had discovered within herself. This was her home now, a sanctuary built upon trust and shared experiences. She would not be the girl who cowered in fear. She would face any challenge that arose with the fierce spirit of those around her. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of lavender and gold, Clara gathered the women by the fire. "I wanted to propose something," she said, her voice steady, the warmth of the flames reflecting in her eyes. "I think we should host a gathering, a way to welcome others into our community, to share our stories and our crafts." The women erupted into a chorus of agreement. "A gathering it is!" May grinned, her excitement infectious. "We can showcase our skills, create a space for others to feel the warmth we've found together." With plans taking shape, Clara felt invigorated. She envisioned lanterns lighting up the night, laughter ringing through the air, and a community blossoming under the stars. The thought of opening their doors to others filled her with hope, the very essence of what she had longed for: connection, friendship, and freedom. The gathering day arrived, and Clara could hardly contain her delight as she watched the cabin transform into a hub of warmth and laughter. Banners made from colorful fabric fluttered in the gentle breeze, and tables overflowed with handmade crafts, delicious food, and the heartbeats of their collective efforts. As the sun began its descent, casting a kaleidoscope of colors across the sky, Clara stood ready to welcome visitors. Her heart raced with anticipation and nervousness, yet all she could think of were the dreams that had woven her into this new life. This was no longer just about her. It was about building a sanctuary for anyone who had felt lost or trapped, about celebrating resilience. When the first guests arrived, Clara felt an overwhelming sense of achievement. She greeted each one with a smile, her spirits soaring as laughter echoed through the air. The gathering became a tapestry of stories, woven together with threads of hope, comfort, and connection. As twilight settled in, Clara stood at the center of it all, surrounded by women who had uplifted her, alongside newcomers who shared similar stories of struggle and triumph. In that moment, under the stars, Clara felt an undeniable sense of purpose and belonging that surpassed any fear of her past. With a heart full of hope, Clara knew that her journey had only just begun, and in this beautiful community, she had carved out a place where love, friendship, and acceptance could flourish, even in the wild expanse of the Old West. As the evening grew darker, the gathering around the fire grew livelier. Clara watched, her heart swelling with pride and gratitude. Laughter rang out as people shared their stories, their fears, and their dreams, creating a web of connections that wrapped around them like a warm blanket. She moved among the visitors, offering them refreshments and encouraging them to share their own crafting skills. Under the twinkling stars, Clara found herself drawn into conversations with women whose eyes sparkled with resilience, much like her own. They spoke of journeys that led them to this welcoming space, each narrative a testament to their spirit. Joy filled Clara as she listened to tales of both struggle and victory, stories that mingled with the crackling of the fire. Suddenly, a familiar face emerged from the shadows, and Clara's breath caught in her throat. May, who had become like a sister to her, was standing beside her, looking equally shocked. "Is that—" May whispered, nodding toward the figure who had just entered the clearing. Jonah stood at the edge of the gathering, his silhouette stark against the flickering light. Clara's heart sank, an icy grip of fear wrapping around her. The laughter and warmth that had enveloped her moments ago faded, replaced by a suffocating anxiety. How had he found her? 1,000 worries shot through her mind. The safety of her friends, the newfound life she had worked so hard to build. Jonah's eyes scanned the crowd, seeking her out. When they finally locked onto Clara's gaze, a chilling wave coursed through her. "You need to leave, Clara," he called out, his voice smooth but underlined with an edge of threat. "I've come for you." The festive atmosphere froze, conversations halted, and all eyes turned toward the confrontation brewing before the fire. Clara felt the tension coiling in the air, dark and heavy. Hearts raced as whispered conversations fluttered around them like startled birds. "No, Jonah," Clara replied, her voice shaky but resolute. "I'm not going anywhere with you." The weight of his presence was stifling, threatening to crush the freedom she had fought so hard to attain. Eloise stepped forward, her demeanor calm yet formidable. "You don't belong here. Clara is safe among us. You cannot command her life anymore." Jonah's gaze flared with anger, and he took a step closer, defiance radiating from him. "You think you can protect her? She doesn't know what she's getting into. She's just a girl who needs me." Jonah's words seethed with entitlement. Clara felt a mix of outrage and numbness wash over her. "I'm not a girl anymore," she declared, her voice gaining strength. "I've chosen my path, and it's not with you." The tension thickened like a storm cloud ready to burst. Eloise held her gaze steady, refusing to let Jonah intimidate her. "You need to leave, or we'll make you," she warned, her voice unwavering. Her resolve inspired Clara, who felt emboldened by the solidarity erupting around her. "Do you really think they can protect you?" Jonah's tone dripped with disdain as he smirked, attempting to undermine the very foundation of Clara's newfound community. "More than you ever could," Clara shot back, remembering the warmth and laughter shared around the fire. "You isolated me, tried to control me, but I have found my voice. I have found my strength." The women gathered around Clara, forming a united front, their collective power radiating through the clearing. Clara felt her fear begin to ebb as she saw the bravery reflected in their faces. Together, they stood firm against Jonah's menacing presence. Jonah's expression twisted with indignation, fury flashing in his eyes. "You think they can keep secrets? This is the frontier. They will abandon you when it matters." But Clara refused to let his words seep into her heart. "I trust them because they have shown me kindness and understanding. Something you never did." Clara's own voice startled her with its fierceness. For the first time she felt like she was not just fighting for herself, but for the community that had become her lifeline. Jonah scoffed, the jagged edges of his anger inching closer to the surface. "This is just a facade, Clara. You're playing house. You think you can hide in the wilderness and forget me? I'll always find you." Clara pushed the rising tide of fear aside. "You can try, but you'll find that I'm no longer the woman you left behind. I have my own life now. I am free." The moment hung in the air like a charged particle, tension palpable as the crowd collectively held its breath. Then, with a dismissive huff, Jonah turned on his heel and began walking back into the dark woods. "I don't need you," Clara called after him, her voice unwavering, strong. "And I won't let you take me from my home." Jonah paused, momentarily casting a shadow over the gathering before disappearing entirely into the night. Clara's heart raced as the realization sunk in. She had stood her ground against the man who had once possessed her life. She had refused to be silenced, proving that she was far stronger than he had ever imagined. As the remnants of tension faded, the laughter and conversations began anew. Warmth and relief washed over Clara, and the community she had grown to love enveloped her once more. She felt a radiant light within her, a beacon shining brightly against the darkness of her past. The gathering continued, stories shared around the fire, weaving the fabric of friendship deeper. Clara smiled and joined in, recognizing how far she had come. She glimpsed her own reflection in the eyes of those around her, and it mirrored the strength they all shared. They had bonded as survivors, as friends, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The storm had passed both inside and out, and Clara understood that she had not just found a new home. She had discovered her true self. With the support of women who valued her strength and dreams, she could finally embrace the life she had craved, crafting a future rich with possibilities. As she gazed into the stars overhead, Clara knew one thing. She was ready to reclaim her story and write the chapters that would define her existence, refusing to ever allow fear to cast a shadow over her light again. Together, they would rise, refusing to be overlooked in a world that often sought to silence the voices of women. In this corner of the frontier, camaraderie bloomed, and so too did Clara's heart. The journey had just begun, and with fire in her soul, she was prepared to face whatever lay ahead. As the night deepened and stars twinkled overhead, Clara found herself buoyed by the warmth of companionship that surrounded her. The flickering firelight danced along the faces of her friends, illuminating the hope and resilience within them. She had faced Jonah and emerged unscathed, her spirit unyielding. But a new purpose ignited within her. It was time to turn this refuge into a stronger community, a beacon for others like her. "Ladies," Clara called out, her voice steady and filled with determination. "We've come a long way since I first arrived. Together, we created a haven, a safe space. But I believe we can do more. Let's extend our arms to those who are still trapped in darkness." The women nodded, inspired by her passion. May stepped forward, enthusiasm brightening her expression. "What do you have in mind, Clara?" "We could organize workshops to teach others skills we've learned. Sewing, gardening, crafting. We can create a network of support." "Yes!" Clara exclaimed, her heart racing with excitement. "We could also invite neighboring townspeople to join us for gatherings where we share stories, not just our struggles but our triumphs. Let's instill hope in those who've lost it." Eloise smiled, the warmth in her gaze igniting a spark of courage within Clara. "That's a brilliant idea. When we share our experiences, we empower one another. We can build a community that thrives on healing and understanding." In the days that followed, Clara poured her energy into organizing the first event, a gathering that would draw women from far and wide. Flyers were crafted by hand, each letter written with zeal, proclaiming an invitation to a day of sharing, learning, and crafting. Clara felt alive as she worked, her thoughts buzzing with anticipation. Finally, the day arrived. Clara stood outside the cabin, taking in the vibrant stream of women arriving from neighboring areas, their faces bright with hope and curiosity. The air was electric, filled with the sounds of laughter and warm chatter, intertwining like a melodic embrace. As the sun climbed higher, Clara welcomed each woman with open arms. Her nervousness morphed into excitement as she introduced them to the space they had created, a tapestry of shared struggles and newfound strength. She explained their goal: to cultivate a community where stories turned to strength and dreams transformed into reality. The day unfolded with workshops of creativity and knowledge, filling the cabin with the hum of conversation and the click of needles and scissors. Clara joyfully moved from group to group, listening to stories that mirrored her own, resonating with the pain and joy of those who had walked through their own storms. As she stood in the center of the room, surrounded by sewing machines, scraps of fabric, and enthusiastic chatter, Clara felt a sense of belonging that transcended anything she had known. Each woman who had joined them was a thread in an intricate tapestry, each story woven together to illustrate the struggle and resilience that defined them. But amidst the laughter and celebration, Clara occasionally stole glances outside, each rustle of leaves making her heart race. Jonah's threat still lingered in her mind, a shadow that refused to vanish completely. She pushed those thoughts aside, focusing instead on the power of the moment, the unyielding spirit of the women surrounding her. A sudden knock on the door interrupted her thoughts, and a hush fell over the room. Clara's stomach twisted nervously. "I'll get it," she said, forcing her voice steady. As she opened the door, her breath caught. Standing there was a young girl, perhaps no more than 16, with tear-streaked cheeks and wide, fearful eyes. "Please, can I come inside?" she begged, her voice barely above a whisper. Clara's heart ached at the sight of her distress. "Of course," Clara replied, stepping aside to let her in. The girl rushed past, soaking in the warmth emanating from the gathering. "What's your name?" Clara asked gently, her heart swelling with compassion. "Emily," the girl replied, her voice trembling. I ran away from home. My father, he doesn't let me be who I am. I heard about this place. I hoped I could find help." In an instant, the women surrounded Emily, their expressions shifting to one of concern and empathy. Clara took her hands, feeling the fear radiating from her. "You're safe here, Emily. You've made the right choice." With their encouragement, Emily began to share her story, a painful account of feeling trapped in a life that stifled her spirit. The other women listened intently, nodding in understanding, their eyes reflecting the battles they too had faced. Emboldened by their acceptance, Emily's voice grew stronger. "I just want to live freely, be myself without fear," she said, tears brimming in her eyes. The sincerity of her desire resonated deeply within the group. Clara stepped forward, her heart swelling with purpose. "You will find that here, Emily. Each of us has faced darkness, and now we're here to lift one another out of it. You are not alone." The gathering warmed again, laughter and encouragement enveloping Emily like a protective shield. Clara felt a profound sense of fulfillment blossom within her. This was what she had envisioned, a place where vulnerability turned into strength, and where fear transformed into courage. As the evening wore on, Clara stepped outside briefly, the sun setting on the horizon. The colors painted the sky with shades of orange and pink, reminiscent of the new life she had embraced. Yet a chill washed over her as she recalled Jonah's presence haunting the edges of her mind. She knew he wouldn't be easily deterred. Retreating back inside, she strategized, determined to safeguard their newfound sanctuary. The stories shared that day had created ties that would not easily break, and she vowed to protect them fiercely. "Tomorrow, we'll set up a watch schedule among the women," she said, gathering everyone's attention. "We need to ensure our safety. I refuse to let fear dictate our lives. We will strengthen our community, and no one will take that from us." Nods of agreement rippled around the room, and Clara felt a renewed sense of determination swell within her. Together, they would rise against whatever threats emerged, carving a legacy of strength and unity in the face of adversity. That night, Clara went to bed with newfound hope and resolve. She wrapped her arms around herself, realizing she had walked through storms before and emerged on the other side, with the love and support of other women who understood the struggle and celebrated the triumphs. No longer would she allow the shadows of her past to dictate her future. She would thrive, and she would help others do the same. As sleep took her, she dreamt of vibrant gardens and women gathering, laughter echoing in the air, a community defined not by the fears they had faced, but by the love they had cultivated together. Clara awoke the next morning to the soft light filtering through the cabin's windows, a welcome promise of a new day. The warmth from the hearth still lingered, wrapping around her like a comforting embrace. She took a moment to breathe deeply, letting the scents of herbs mingled with fresh earth fill her lungs. Instantly, the worries of the past began to fade, leaving behind a burgeoning sense of purpose. As Clara dressed, she pondered the events of the gathering the night before. The women had bonded over shared stories of resilience and hope, and now they were united in their determination to build something beautiful together. She felt invigorated, ready to forge ahead with plans to strengthen their community. After a hearty breakfast shared with the women, Clara gathered them for a meeting. A sense of excitement buzzed through the air, as though they all sensed the profound changes about to unfold. "Thank you all for being here," Clara began, her heart swelling with gratitude. "Last night was a turning point for all of us. Together, we've created a sanctuary, a place of acceptance. But now we have to take the next steps to ensure our safety and our future." Eloise nodded, her expression serious. "It's important we develop a system for keeping watch. We need to ensure that everyone feels secure as we grow our community." Clara smiled at her, encouraged by the support. "Exactly. I want each of you to feel empowered to live your lives without fear. So here's what I propose. We will create a rotating watch system, ensuring that no one is alone in their vulnerability. And in addition to that, we can schedule more gatherings to build bonds among us. The more connected we are, the stronger we'll be." The women murmured their agreement, enthusiasm rising like the morning sun. May brought forth the idea of organizing a skills fair where everyone could showcase what they were good at, no matter how small. "It's a way to celebrate ourselves and invite newcomers into our fold," she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Clara nodded eagerly, imagining the fair as a vibrant display of creativity and connection. "Yes, let's do it. We can invite not just women but families, and anyone looking for community. It'll be an opportunity to share our crafts, our stories, and most importantly, our strength." Over the next few days, Clara and the women worked tirelessly. They gathered supplies for the fair, crafting banners, preparing meals, and organizing workshops for skills demonstrations. Each task infused Clara with a sense of purpose, her earlier fears seemingly dissolving with each passing moment they spent together. Yet even amidst the excitement, Clara felt the shadow of Jonah looming in the back of her mind. She couldn't shake the feeling that he might return to disrupt everything they had built. At night, she would slip out to check on the paths surrounding the cabin, careful to stay vigilant. The darkness felt less daunting now that she had her community by her side, yet the threat still weighed heavily on her heart. On the eve of the skills fair, Clara stood outside the cabin, absorbing the cool night air and the sounds of crickets singing. As she watched the stars twinkle above, a sense of calm settled over her. Suddenly, a familiar figure emerged from the shadows, bringing Clara's heart to a halt. It was Emily, the girl who had come to them seeking refuge. "Clara," she whispered, her voice full of urgency, "I saw someone at the edge of the woods earlier. I think it was him." Panic coursed through Clara, her instincts kicking in. "Are you sure it was Jonah?" she asked, gathering the strength to remain calm. "I couldn't see clearly, but I felt it. I think he's watching us." The fear in Emily's eyes reminded Clara of what they had fought to escape. Clara took a deep breath, her mind racing. "We need to tell the others. We can't let him ruin what we've built." They rushed back into the warmth of the cabin, urgency coursing through their veins. Clara gathered the women around the fire, her heart pounding. "Listen up, everyone. Emily has spotted Jonah near the cabin. We need to be on high alert." Gasps of concern echoed through the room, but Clara felt a wave of determination wash over her. "This is our home, and we won't let him take that from us. We've worked too hard and come too far. We will stand together and protect what we've created." The women nodded, their faces ignited with a fiery resolve. "We'll set a watch tonight," May suggested, her voice fierce. "We won't let him intimidate us." A plan was quickly laid out, each woman taking on a role to maintain vigilance. Clara felt a rush of gratitude for the strength surrounding her. They were no longer isolated and afraid. They were united and defiant. As the night grew darker and the forest thrummed with life, Clara found herself on the perimeter watch. She held a lantern, its soft light illuminating patches of the forest as she scanned the area. Her heart pounded in her chest. Each rustle sent adrenaline coursing through her veins, but every time doubt crept in. She remembered the warmth of community, the shared dreams they had fostered. Hours passed, and Clara knew the other women were alert as well. Shared glances and nods exchanged between them. When the chill of the night threatened to seep through her resolve, she would think of Emily, the courageous girl who found her way to them, and the laughter they all shared, and it ignited a flame of strength inside her. Just as the moon reached its peak in the sky, Clara's heart raced as she caught sight of movement in the shadows. Her instincts flared, adrenaline coursing through her, and she steadied her grip on the lantern. As the figure drew closer, Clara's breath caught in her throat, and she squinted into the darkness. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice steady despite her pounding heart. The figure stopped, and illuminated in the lantern's glow was not Jonah, but one of her neighbors, a woman named Sarah, whose face was serious. "Clara, I saw someone lingering near the western grove," Sarah said, urgency in her tone. "We need to gather the others." Clara turned and hurried back toward the cabin, her heart racing. "Everyone, we might have a situation," she called out as she rushed inside. Gathered together once more, Clara quickly filled them in on Sarah's observation. The tension was thick in the air, but what filled Clara with pride was the determination in each of their eyes. "We can't retreat. We're not afraid. We'll stand our ground," she declared, her voice ringing clear. They devised a plan, armed with tools and courage, ready to face whatever darkness might come. Clara felt a fierce sparklight within her. This wasn't merely about facing an old threat. This was a battle for everything they had built together, for their right to live in peace. As they positioned themselves strategically around the cabin, Clara's heart raced, but it was accompanied by a resolve as fierce as the wild winds outside. No longer held captive by fear or the past, she stood shoulder to shoulder with the women who had become her second family, united in the spirit of defiance and love. In that moment, Clara realized that the true essence of courage was not the absence of fear, but the presence of strength in companionship. They would face whatever came their way, and together, they would not only protect their sanctuary, but thrive in it. The winds howled around the cabin, but within, fire and resilience burned brighter than ever. Together, they were unstoppable, and nothing would extinguish the light they had ignited.